I, Ankita Dutta, project lead for the Stories of India Season 1, welcome you to the fourth episode titled Art and Artists Stories from the Stage. Stories of India is brought to you by www.tellmeyourstory.biz, a paperless media that works towards popularizing stories from academic research and social significance in collaboration with global thought leaders. Registrations are open for the writing program season 4, the last date for registration being 20th December 2021. Visit tellmeyourstory.biz to know more. I'm privileged to have an esteemed panel this evening to discuss the stories from different corners and demographics representing India. I would like to introduce the panelists before we proceed. So we have Dipannita Sharma, who is an actor and a supermodel, born in Assam, now operating from Delhi and Mumbai. Dipannita has lent her talent to many mainstream and meaningful films. She is also a popular contributor in television, music videos, and OTT. She has also judged a fashion based show on MTV. Other than acting, she has walked the ramp for national and international designers. She has also been the face for brands across the world, endorsing products ranging from luxury items to skincare. Dipannita was among the final five of Miss India 1998. She had won the Miss Photogenic title in the same contest. Moving on, working with visuals, comics, and illustrations, Vishwajyoti Ghosh works on his stories through multiple mediums. He is an Indian graphic novelist, illustrator, and a podcaster. His graphic novel, Delhi Calm, blends realistic comic passages with political commentaries to remember the emergency set in the mid 70s. In 2013, he curated This Side, That Side, Restoring Partition, an anthology of graphic narratives by 48 illustrators and authors from Southern Asia on the partition of the Indian subcontinent. Joe Sacco, the pioneer of modern comic reporting, described the book as beautiful, moving, and unforgettable. Working with stories across platforms, he now divides his time between drawing and podcasting stories. His podcast, Kissa Stories, is his latest endeavor to capture touching stories from otherwise ordinary lives. And thirdly, we have Shreyasi Gopinath, who is a Bharatanatyam dancer, teacher, and choreographer, a model, theater artist, and voiceover artist. A Ministry of Culture, Government of India scholarship holder, she is empaneled with IRCEN. She is also a graded Doordarshan artist. Shreyashi has performed across geographies, India, and abroad. One of her biggest choreographies is a solo dance drama, The Princess of Pukea. Felicitated with many awards and titles like the Nritya from the government of Orissa, Shreyashi collaborates with the government of India to promote a rich cultural heritage. Shreyashi Gopinath among the rural school and colleges, and she has established her institute, Shreyasi Gopinath Dance Academy, in 2014 and has two branches in Delhi. She imparts training to beginners, seniors, differently abled children, and adults. She also trains students online. So, with that, I welcome all and would
Thank
like to
you.
move on to
Thank
the
you.
first question. Welcome. The first question that I would like to ask all of you. So, art in all its forms, it has been a storyteller since time immemorial. So, artists have taken up, various streams to justify and re-justify this statement. So, how does that relate with your individual lives? Art as a storyteller.
I think if I may, I
Sure.
my journey of my childhood was in Assam. I'm an Assamian, and I think a lot of my choices sort of have influence from my childhood. I sort of have seen my mom and my Aita, who was my nani, used to write plays. They were, they felt everything that was happening around them constantly, and they would always pour it out in their, poems and their little skits and plays. And I have grown up acting in those and taking active participation. And at that time, I didn't, I think, realize how important that would be. And I think that sort of sowed the seeds of what I'm going to do later in life. And I think every day that today that I'm here, I live outside of Assam. I pursue a career that has been a choice for me, thankfully. And I think that sort of comes from how I grew up, how the artist in me sort of was allowed to grow during my childhood. And that I think I carry with me, and every day try to emulate new things into what I feel. And my decisions always come from a place of what I feel. And that is what was taught to me, and that is what I feel a true artist is. And I'm thankful that mom and Nani inspired me to do that.
Okay, so next I'd like to know from Shreyasi.
So I think art and storytelling for me has again it started with my grandmother. She would I spent a lot of time with her, and coming from a South Indian family, storytelling was a big part of all the time that I spent with her, and she would tell me these stories. And slowly, when you start hearing stories and knowing more stories, you want to, as an artist, touch on everything. So now, for me, with my grandma, it started there, and moving on, it went to when I took dance up, as a hobby. So we had to learn dance or music from a South Indian family. So when I started learning dance is when I started kind of relating all the stories that I've heard, like the small stories from the Ramayana, Mahabharata would, you know, that my granny would tell me during bedtime is what I was learning in dance now at a young age. Uh, and that kind of it did open my mind out to um, multiple disciplines and just when I went into college and started dancing is when professionally is when I realized how fortunate I was as a child to have heard all this so that I could take it forward and carry it ahead in my own way. So, at least according to me, I feel storytelling is a huge part of any artist's life. And I mean, all of us, that's what we rely on. Now, storytelling comes in different forms, whether it's a fairy tale or something from the Ramayana or Mahabharata, even poetry for that matter, is a story that is being told. It's just that poetry gets interpreted in a very different way. So that is how I see it as an artist.
So,
So,
yes.
taking on from what Dipannita and Shreyasi said, I think the one thing that's common in all of us is that I don't really, and I personally don't see any difference between art and storytelling. I think we are all in the in the practice of actually mastering or trying to master the art of storytelling in whichever form we are doing. Whether it's through dance, whether it's through our work, whether filmmaking or storytelling or whatever we are doing. Effectively, we are storytelling. Every house at the end of the day sits together, talks how the day went, talks about what the news is, talk about how the cricket match went, how what the neighbors are doing. It's effectively storytelling, and everyone's just informing each other. It's just that now we have fancy formats for it, or we call it content in different formats. But the fact remains, all we are doing is effectively, whether we are dancing on the stage or whether we are gossiping, we are effectively doing is storytelling. And for me, the best forms of storytelling was actually what happens in our daily lives. And I remember my best school friends were the guys who actually spoke a lot of nonsense in the sense they would just rabble and they would just make up things, that my father had tea with Mountbatten or something like that. No, that's complete nonsense. But fact remains that those guys were fabulous storytellers. They could just think on their feet and they could do it. And that's something to learn. And one thing that I've learned is the art and storytelling, or rather the art of storytelling, is the ability to think on your feet. That's something storytelling really brings forward. And for me, that's my endeavor. And same, I'm sure it's with Dipannita and Shreyasi, is actually to take that form forward through the practice that we are doing. The practice is the medium, but the effective, the larger endeavor is actually storytelling.
So, from your answers, we can say that, I mean, we can mold the proverb a bit like charity begins at home. We can say storytelling begins at home, and then it moves on. So,
It probably starts in
moving
the womb,
on.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So, moving on, Dipannita, since you started the thread, I would like to ask you first, like the glamour world, it's quite beyond the reach of the common people. However, in reality, people they love to emulate showbiz. So, machoism of the hero it becomes the language of male youth, and women's emancipation targets the society in general. So, it contains all the motives that we see every day. So, how do you personally balance the two, the glamour world and the people connection?
Yeah, that has been an ongoing debate, I think, forever. And there are a lot of cliches in the glamour world. And personally, I think that that has always irked me in a certain way. That a man is always portrayed a certain way and a woman is always portrayed in a certain way for the longest time. Thankfully, things have been changing. When I started working, I think, which is why I did very few films, because I begun my career with a film like 16 December, where the female protagonist was actually a trained commando, and there was not one single scene where she was emancipated, because she was fighting equally along with her male counterparts. And that made it, I mean, today, when I look back, it's become a cult film, and everyone says how much they admire my choices and everything. And at that time, I didn't get any roles after Solar December. I was, because the industry didn't know how to fit me in, and because I was not coy, and I didn't know how to run around trees, and I did do, I think, one film where I did some sort of running around trees, and I was not happy about it at all, because I felt very awkward, and that was not the kind of film I wanted to do. So thankfully things have changed. Then I moved on to Ladies versus Ricky Bell. Since then, I feel very happy today that most of the time when I'm offered roles, when they come, we see you as a strong woman, so we are wondering what we can create for you. So, I mean, I feel happy that they see me like that. But at the same time, I'm like, wow, how much do you have to think about creating a strong woman on screen, or otherwise? I mean, really, you have to think so much. So I think today, because of OTT, a lot has opened up. There is no, with OTT, you're not constantly thinking about, okay, this is the target audience, we are making it for multiplexes, or we are, this is single screen, and, it is the Salman and Ajay Devgan kind of film. So the actress has to be a certain way. So that OTT has sort of taken that off a little bit, and there is a lot more content where a woman is a woman the way she is, and she's not portrayed. And everyone, I feel, Indian women have been so strong all their lives. I mean, they're resilient. You see the strength in your own families. I've grown up with women like that, and to see, women who are portrayed in a weak manner, that is something that I have never been able to agree with, which is why I think I've done very little films, because I've constantly had to, this was a battle with myself, and so yes, there is a balance you have to figure out. And I think it has taken a long time. It really has. And there has been a phase where you're like, my God, is this going to be, I mean, I have to mold myself into something that I don't believe in. That sort of, I couldn't do. So today, I think I can safely say that there is a balance. Uh, you can focus on what you want to do, because there are more platforms. And I think OTT has opened that out. And yes, we have to all say no to this typical portrayal of a man on screen and a woman on screen. Really have to.
Yes, that is.
Also, I think it's also saying no to a lot of stories as well.
Yes.
It's another kind of thing that it's not only about the roles or something that but it's also the kind of stories. I mean, it says we know what not to say yes to or agree to.
Absolutely. Yeah, and why are we, a lot of times when people have, sorry, since we are on it, I'm just carrying this forward. A lot of times when you call for auditions, and I'm talking about back in the day, they talk about an Indian look. Indian look. What is an Indian look? I used to ask them, what is an Indian look? We have varied looks. Every look is Indian. I'm a Northeastern. She's a South Indian. You're Bengali. We are all, that is the beauty. And how are you saying in film, there is only going to be one type of look, which is why, coming back to you, we have not told so many stories from across the country even, how many times have we told the story set in Northeast, because the film world does not identify with it only, they don't think. So for the longest time it has been a battle, and even now I think there are hardly, I mean, you see some primary characters, thankfully it is changing, like I keep saying, but I think
But
it's
still
like
a long way
this
to
big
go.
mindset.
No,
Yeah, long way to go. And thank you for bringing that up. That is actually very true. Yeah.
Yeah, because Northeastern still don't have the Indian look. Maybe. Okay,
According
so
to, yeah, because they have decided what an Indian look is. That
hmm.
is where the problem lies. Yeah.
And some
no,
of
that's
them
the
I
same in
find,
performing arts as well.
Yes.
yeah,
I mean,
I'm
you
sure.
get stereotyped if you're in a if you're supposed to
you get
play a
stereotyped
Sita's
for
character,
complexions. Hmm. For
Complexion.
if you're
complexion
supposed to
also,
play,
yeah.
yeah,
Hugely.
complexion, the way your face is. Oh, you don't have a round face. Raja Ravi Verma made a painting where Sita had a round face. So or whatever. Any character had a round face. So then that is what it is. Who cares? I mean, his muse look that way. That doesn't mean that everyone is
Everyone has to look
going
like
to look
that.
the same. Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was it happens. I think everywhere in
Across.
Yes,
dance as well. It's not something that
absolutely.
doesn't happen, especially when you want to perform and you're a performer. I mean, yeah,
Yeah, when
yeah.
there's audience watching you, then only all of these come up. And many
I
of
think
the
I
stories,
think the largest struggle. I think the largest struggle here is again, all three of us come from very exposed backgrounds. We are coming from absolutely very spaces where we can actually negotiate and all of that. But even then, it's our uphill struggle to negotiate or challenge the homogeneity of it all. So
Yes.
that homogeneity is a standard set format, and no one knows who set it up, right? And when was it set up, and how was it set up? But the fact remains, we are fighting against it every day. She's a northeastern, she's from the South India, and they are facing the same challenges.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in Delhi and still facing it. You're a Bengali, how can you say Hindi stories? She's a dancer, how can she not have a round face and big eyes? She's a northeastern, how can she play a role of Sati Savitri? Now the fact remains that the homogeneity of it all is no one knows who set it up, but we have to fight it every day. That's the beauty of storytelling, that we tell our stories and we fight our battles through our stories.
absolutely, that is there. True, very true. So, carrying on what we were talking about, Shreyasi, I'd like to ask you as a Bharatanatyam dancer. So, you get to tell all the stories about our culture, our traditions, and our heritage. So, do you feel that it is necessary to include additional themes to the pre existing ones, like we were discussing right now? So, do you believe in merging two or more dance forms also during choreography? What would you
Okay,
say?
answering your first question, okay, where adding to a story. Now, I can tell a story from my point of view. Okay, there are different point of views in a story. Now, I'm talking from a mythological aspect where, let's say, we take the Ramayana. We have different interpretations of the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, and every time I read it, you're reading it through a different pair of eyes and you're seeing the story differently. So when you see the story differently, the narration changes, the interpretation changes, everything. And I don't feel that, so it's always it's said that, oh, you're a classical dancer, okay, so she's going to stick to the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, the basic stuff, or some story on Krishna or Shiva or something. It has to be mythological. You can't take current relevant issues. That's not the thing. So like when I was reading Coral's books as well, okay, that she's written, like Kunti, I just felt that these women are so strong. So you feel that um, you need to portray that and bring that out more, because that's what actually I feel, at least, I mean, in movies it's still not there. Like you had said, there is that struggle that you feel. But with dance and art, of course, the audience is very limited, I have to say that. The moment you say a classical dancer, you say Bharatanatyam, people are like, oh, this is going to be one song that we're not going to understand and we're not going to get. So let's not go. But the audience is small, but in a small way, I'm trying to bring about that change where also, why can't, so I work with this very senior dancer who is who kind of brought me out of the box also, in a way, where she's done Birth of Jesus, okay, she's done Sound of Music in Bharatanatyam. And when you see these concepts, you tend to think that, okay, when people do actually enjoy it. And so it just so happened that there was a meeting today, and we were talking in a school. And while talking in that school, the principal of that school told us that it's better to do Western concepts than doing Indian mythology, because children want to know more about the Western culture. So they want to hear Western stories in the Indian art form. They want to see it in the Indian dance because they might be able to relate to it better. So that. And of course, when it comes to different themes, I think, any story can be done in art, irrespective of the language. I've done Dogri in Bharatanatyam. It's You have to make it audience specific. Like if I'm performing in um, say Jammu, I have to use Dogri because people will understand that. When I'm performing in Delhi, I try to use Kabir, Surdas, Vidyapati, Tulsidas, so that the language is understandable. So at least according to me, I don't think poetry or the story um, has has to be only from the south or has to be only from our Indian mythology. It can vary completely. Coming to your second question, which was what was your second question? Sorry, I
Uh, yeah, like a fusion. I mean, merging two or more
okay.
dance forms. Yeah.
Right, right. So, see, personally, I have done Bharatanatyam throughout my life, and doing only Bharatanatyam, of course, yes, as a practitioner, that's what comes to me instinctively first. But also, I've realized with time that as an artist, you need to grow. So I'm trying to incorporate. I've just started into the pandemic. I've started doing aerial silk and pole dance, which kind of helps you as an artist to kind of expand your horizon, right? Also, having said that, it's not like I've not worked with other artists. I was working with someone who plays the hang drums to create music because their music is different. There are no lyrics, but there are beats and there are rhythms. Different Kathak dancers, because their movements are different, and I think the collaboration looks better on stage, and people want to see different things. They can't seeing the same thing. It can be slightly boring for someone who doesn't understand Bharatanatyam, because again, language is a barrier. They think language is a barrier. So that, and I guess merging two art forms is not, according to me at least, it's not wrong. I
Yeah,
feel
because
if the primary aim, in at least in my head, is to make sure that the audience or the rasikas enjoy what they're there to see. And it's a very give and take sort of a relationship, because if they enjoy, invariably I also, that energy is there in the auditorium, in the theater, and that kind of boosts my energy to do better as an
Yeah,
artist. Yeah.
absolutely. Because reality shows also today they are using a lot of fusion that we see. No pure classical dancing is being done rather. They are always mixing
See,
up
the
something.
real. I'm sorry. Maybe I might now sound like a traditionalist completely, but the reality shows, yes, in terms of the reach, it is a much wider reach, and people are suddenly saying, "Acha, then they are educating people that children should learn classical arts, etc." But when it comes to how it's presented, the presentation is
Yeah,
where I think I have a slight disconnect and
I also
disagreement
have.
there.
Yeah, I also
I-
think that because I don't know, somewhere I think it dilutes that subtle aura, or I mean the sweetness, or that thing that is connected to the a pure classical piece. If we are doing that on stage, I mean,
No, here
maybe
I think for
sometimes.
is it? I mean, I'm just asking you as a question. When you see it, is it because of the influence of not to say that movies are not good? Is it because of a Bollywood influence and the media and that thing to be popular? Is it that influence that actually makes people do what they're doing in a reality dance show? When
Absolutely.
they
I
claim
think
it to be
it's,
classical,
yeah,
when
yeah.
they say, "Oh, it is classical, I'm doing classical, I'm
Yes,
doing Kathak," you know, if
That's
you actually
possible.
see,
That's a possibility for sure.
yes.
at
So if
times
you
they
see,
think that we should hold up our heritage, so we are using our dance form, and then we are mixing it with some gymnastics or like that,
Yeah,
and
I
then they
think
are
it's visible.
gymna
Yeah.
I think it's to be fair, because I do see a lot of these young kids,
Hmm.
little kids in school who do a lot of gymnastics and aerobics, and they incorporate that. It's not wrong as long as it's done tastefully. I think that is what I
Yeah,
would say to it. Okay. Um, that is what is more important, that it be done in a very subtle, maybe,
something.
but classy manner. It doesn't end
Yeah,
up looking vulgar.
it should suit the eye. That's it.
Yes.
So, moving on to our third panelist, Vishwajyoti, would you please tell us a little about the role of graphic art and comics in influencing social behavior with reference to your work experience? And I have a follow up question, but I would like you to answer this first, maybe.
Uh, I think before that, I would just like to take a thread from what Dipannita and Shreyasi said. At one level, it's that's a contradiction of storytelling and of our practice. Is that at one level we are also we are getting challenged, and we are challenging the hegemony of stereotyping, straitjacketing at one level. But at the same time, what really surprises us is also the role of the reaction of our audiences. Like when she did a cult film, which has now become a cult film. It was not a cult film those days. When she thinks back about it or gets to hear about it, it's the reaction of the audience that surprises us. Similarly, when she did Sound of Music, for example, in Bharatnatyam, the reaction of the audience was completely surprising, and probably not really expected of a traditional straight-jacketed audience again. So that is something that keeps on challenging us, and probably also keeps motivating us as storytellers. And I am not getting into this debate of purity versus impurity, or blending or something, because I come from Delhi, and and Delhi is a melting pot of hybrid culture. So we don't have a Durga Puja without a chowmein. So that's the place I'm coming from. So I'm not getting into the whole concept of the sanctity of it all, or something. I think there's great fun mixing things up, as long as it's done with the intention, with the intention of pure storytelling. That's about it. And if that intention is in its place, nothing falls out of place. Then it does not become the khichdi it is expected to, or critics would say. So I'm not into getting into that. My question is simple: is that experimenting with forms, making the forms grow, and making our work grow, I think, is the biggest challenge for all of us. And when we see the reaction of the audience that we see, which surprises us, is something that keeps us going, which means the audience is also as ready to carry this journey with you only if we provide them the space and the content for it. We can keep them dismissing them that हमारे लोग तो नहीं समझेंगे, and that is the biggest excuse. When she says, the producer says that, or her, stage manager says that, it's the biggest excuse because they are not ready for it. But the audience might be ready for it, which we haven't known or we haven't tried. So that would be my first point. Coming back to graphics and comics, I think graphics and comics have a different audience than actually what I. So I do my comics and graphics in English, which is very different from the podcast I do, which is I do it in Hindi. Having said that, I think the audience for that is again different, and I'm still to figure out the audience of it all. If at all we are making that outreach possible, I think the onus is also upon us as creators to make it reach to the people. It is not as only on people who are funding the content. It's also as much for. So if we want to convert the audience to our thing, we'll also have to get more practitioners in that in place. We have to reach out as much diversely, innovatively to make our stories reach. So similarly for comics and graphic novels, it has a very niche audience. But for that, we'll have to create a lot much content, and content that we would like to reach out, that we would like to create, and then see if there's an audience for it and play with the audience along with that. Because I mean, something that I think all of us would have learned in school or in college or from our gurus, that if your content is good, if your output is good, there will be people for it. I believe that even if a proposal is good, there will be someone in this world who will be there for it, even if it's 10 people, even if it's an empty audience of 10 people, there will be an audience for it. And for me, that is very important, because with graphic novels we have a very niche audience, but that doesn't stop us from making graphic novels. Fact remains, I just got my royalty check. I mean, who would have? I never, when I started my book, I had no idea that it will reach a place where you'll get paid for it. I mean, I'll get a royalty for it. I can treat all of you guys to a samosa. That's all that I can do with that royalty money. But the fact is, I'm getting a royalty check.
Yes.
There is a space for it. And similarly with my podcast also, the reason I did a podcast in Hindi, if that is a follow-up question, is that I'm trying to write stories which I think have a space which is not in graphic novel or a visual space, but has a space in an oral format. And I, for one, deal with stories which are there from every day, because I see a lot of heroism going on in life around me every day. So, which is why I do a podcast which makes me connect to many places which my books probably will not reach. I will not get a story from Bhilai. I will not get a story from Bahraich. I will not get a story from Bhubaneswar. I will not get a story from Uti through my graphic novels. But I will definitely, someone will ping me, someone will write me that I wrote the story, something like this happened with me also. But the fact remains, we are all effectively doing one thing. We're just trying to reach an audience which we think is like us, and if not like us, is better than us. Broadly, I think that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, it sums it up all, actually.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, my follow-up question was absolutely that as a podcaster, you're recreating the stories of major historical occurrences. So, we believe that the market and the audience is different, which you told. Yeah, it's absolutely that. So, I mean, we would like to move on to a few questions that I would ask to all of you together. So, for artists, art is life, and there's a saying that goes, "Art longa vita brevis." So as artists, could you think of a few positive motivations that only a guild of artists can undertake and no one else? Like, please tell us an inspiring story from your life. So,
Um,
yeah.
I was thinking, inspiring story from my life. I think I'm still creating it, and hopefully it'll be inspiring to people. I'm still on my journey, and yes, when people back home, they see me as some sort of a path breaker, I think, and they say that I inspire them. I think that makes me feel good that I have had a chance to follow my dreams. And I think that's what largely artists do. Yesterday I read this really interesting quote, and I think everyone here probably knows about it, but it just struck a chord, by Dalai Lama. And he says that, the world does not need more successful people. It needs storytellers, lovers, and peacemakers. And I think I completely agree with that, and I think everyone does, because we here today that we are sitting and discussing this, we are all in our own way storytellers. I think you're this amazing author who has put so many things in perspective, and just being part of this today, I have learned so much, through whether through Shreyasi, who's just told us so much about her experiences. Whether I'm getting your name right, Vishwajyoti.
Yes.
Hearing you talk, and I think I feel artists and storytellers are fearless in a certain way, and which is why we can create a difference in a small way. It does not have to be a big statement all the time, but because the fact that artists choose a certain line of work, you're not thinking of a 9 to 5 job. You're already taking that risk of following your dreams, and which is why you are fearless, and which is why you can make that difference, which is why you have a voice. And when you have a voice, you're not afraid of speaking what you're feeling, and I think that's where artists make a difference. That's where artists motivate people in their own small way, even if they're talking to 5 people. And that's where I think their strength lies. So I think I feel fortunate and proud that I can be an artist in my small way.
It was wonderful. So, yes, who would like to go next?
Seriously.
I'm supposed to go next. Okay. All right. So, firstly, this is a difficult question because I think as an artist, uh,
Did we lose you?
I take motivation from, you know, motivation and inspiration from anyone and everyone. Okay, because as a dancer, when I take a character that I'm working on, I see people around me, not just around, even a stranger walking on the road, someone talking to someone at the vegetable vendor, or anyone. To If I see something good in their character, I want to incorporate that in my dance and the character that I'm portraying. Okay, so and the phrase that you just used, I think it means skillfulness in the arts takes time, and I think that's the meaning of it, right? If I'm not getting it wrong.
Like,
And
art
life is too
remains.
short.
Art is short. Yeah, art
Yes,
is long.
skillfulness.
Life is short. Yeah.
Yeah, art is long, life is short. That's what it means. So, according to me, it's basically that inspiration and motivation has to come from around. There's no particular, uh, even my mother getting angry at me first thing in the morning if I don't have the haldi milk is also something that inspires me, because I know when I do a piece, when I'm trying to show a piece on, um, Krishna and Yashoda and her getting angry, that is what I'm going to do. That's where inspiration and motivation comes from. Or if I'm seeing, anything, someone's love for their dog, that also, the love for their pup or their dog is also has that emotion of, we say valsalya bhav, which is, you know the emotion of love, a certain kind of love towards the animal. And that is what inspires me. I mean, when I see it around, I think that's how we need to be motivated and inspired by things that we see around us. Because at least to me, a quote might resonate with us for long, but what we actually should take inspiration and motivation from is what we see around us. That's what I feel.
Mm.
So, Vishwajyoti.
Dare I rephrase the Dalai Lama's quote? I think storytellers are lovers and healers
Yeah,
themselves. Yeah.
correct.
So, and they are constantly battling this every day, and every story, every performance, every piece that we bring out to this world, whether it's a film, which is a much longer duration of practice, putting hours together, or a dance performance, which is again takes it's very long time, or my podcast, which maybe just takes 2 days or something. But the fact remains, we are trying to work around things which have been inspired somewhere along the line from our own daily lives. Well, even if she's doing Krishna, fact remains she's getting inspired from her life. The sabziwala outside, her mother scolding her. When Dipannita is doing a commando, she's not actually going and living with the commando training unit, but the fact remains she's actually trying to imbibe her, putting herself into it. So, similarly for me, so the thing is, there's enough of heroism all around us which keeps us going, and it's not only about the reaction of the audience. Of course the reaction of the audience keeps us moving, gives that much push that we required. Otherwise we can also fall into these slumps of, am I doing it right, maybe I'm not doing it wrong. you know Beyond a point it doesn't really matter after, because somewhere there's someone who's listening to you, who's seeing you, who's talking about your performance, whether even if they're bitching about you, that's fine. But the fact remains they are discussing you, they're talking about your work. That enough is a very small little thing to keep you going. It's not that we are doing some daily heroic, we are not creating mountains every day. We are just doing very small little things. It all adds up. Hopefully it adds up.
Yeah, because negative publicity is also publicity. So, absolutely that. It's a great
Not, not,
thing.
not, not,
Yeah.
not, not, not that we care or it bothers us, because there's
Yeah.
enough. There's enough to
But
do anyway. There's enough to do in our life. As you said, art is long, life is short. I mean, so
absolutely.
we better get doing whatever we have to do. I mean, so.
Every second we should be doing something because it is what will remain. So, the last question for this session would obviously be related to what we are facing. Like we are doing it online, so yeah, we get the hint from there. We are all in the pandemic situation, so it has affected the artists at large globally, especially the grassroots levels, the folk artists, the street artists, the nomadic artists, the beginners, everyone. So I wouldn't ask you how you felt, but rather what should be like a comeback stroke, because it has been such a great shock, for the under-established artists, because many may have lost faith in art and they might have gone for anything that helps sustenance and some quick bucks. So would you like to leave a word for them about that?
I don't think we are anyone to leave a word for them, but the fact remains when they have gone back to their own pursuing other livelihoods, it's not because they've lost faith in art. It's that they don't have a choice. The guys who have
Yeah.
left the city don't have a choice. The fact remains, if I've left dancing, or if I've left painting, if I've left mask making, fact remains I really don't have a choice. I just have to get my roti for the next 1 hour. It's as simple as that. So
Yeah.
our words really don't make a difference. What really we needs to be done is much larger community level interventions that we need to do as artists, and not only artists, just as community. That's simple RWAs. What needs to be done is actually putting an act together and actually helping these getting these things done.
So, Dipannita and Shreyasi, what do you think would be?
I think honestly during the pandemic, I would take this from Vishwajyoti actually, because he's absolutely right about when you have to make ends meet, you have to find other ways of doing what you were doing. Like when I think. Film shoots were off, OTT shoots were off at that time. For 7 months, we didn't do anything. I was doing a few social media engagements where I was probably earning something very small. But I mean, what do you do?
But the
You're
concern was the
figuring,
same.
yeah,
The concern was the same.
right, yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to figure your way around. This is about, like I said, making ends meet. There are people who have had tougher, of course. I'm just giving a little example because of what I went through. But yeah, creativity did not end though. it cannot. Creativity and art cannot end. It lives on, right? You yourself, you said that. So I think people became a lot more creative. We were creating short films from home because we had never thought we can do this. I actually have been part of these international sort of short films which are now going all over festivals, which I shot at home. We figured it out. My director directed me remotely. Who would have thought? So I'm saying the creativity cannot end. Art cannot end. In fact, art gets enhanced, I feel, in times of difficulties. And as Vishwajyoti said that, the people who had to make ends meet, they didn't lose faith in art at all. This was the need of the hour. So I think creativity and art have come back with a big bang now. I see it every day. It's happening, and the fact that we are sitting and discussing this is proof. So yeah, long live art, and it continues to.
Yeah, so
Uh,
Srish, would you like to echo?
so, I mean, for me personally, when taking from what Vishwajyoti and Dipannita have said, that art, we can't say that someone who's a beginner or a folk artist or a street artist, or like you said, you know everyone's journey is different, but what we have all gone through collectively during the phase of the pandemic has been nearly the same. Okay. And like Vishwajyoti said, that we have to come together as a community rather than say, okay, it's only for artists. Or it could be someone in a production team in a movie set. The number of people, I'm sure a film doesn't have just 5 or 10 people.
Yeah.
It's a much larger uh, sphere, and there's so many people working. How many people lost their livelihoods because of the pandemic? So it's not just artists, they're also contributing in a very big way. So and for me, I'm going to take an instance from the history of our country. There's the the wife nama, so which was where the whole tradition of these women who were artists, who were dancers back in the day, they because of the uh, social economic situation, they literally fell from grace, and they had to do what they had to do to make ends meet and get to where they got, whether it was being a maid, whether it was uh, doing working in a temple, stringing flowers in a temple. Because I have seen some people from the Devadasi tradition who, because it was abolished down in our constitution, they had nothing else to do. They knew they were these very highly educated women who were very creative but didn't know what to do. So now coming back, that it is something that is because of the pandemic. I think with artists can be even an author, a poet, anyone. Everyone is facing it. So what do? We come as a community and work towards it. I mean, there is CSR, of course, but let's be honest, it's very difficult to get sponsorships. I mean, a lot of companies do their best, but it is difficult to get sponsorship. The only way I think is maybe through awareness, I guess, if we make people more aware of what we're doing. And
Small community
yes,
efforts, which is
small,
not
yes,
impossible, is something that we can do. I mean, the fact
yes,
remains,
small community.
that.
I think that
Sorry.
also comes from awareness, right? Spreading
Hmm.
awareness. No, if someone's not aware of what a podcast is, or what sort of podcast and what sort of stories that you are um, saying, or what sort of graphic art and books that you're
Hmm.
writing, how will they know? So it has to start at a smaller level, of course, yes. But I guess we all find our way, you know.
We're
I
still
think
trying.
none.
I mean, the funny
Yeah,
thing is,
we are.
the funny thing is that it's not that the question of the question mark on survival has happened now. It has happened in our, maybe in even in our own lives multiple times, right? Right. When
Of
you have
course.
actually asked yourself, now what am I going to do or whatever. But what has happened this
No,
time with the pandemic is the loss of livelihood has happened at an unprecedented level.
it's
That
The
more
very
that, oh
question of
God,
livelihood has been
eh,
questioned.
correct.
it's
Much
more so
unprecedented
that,
level.
yes, but it's more so that, अरे मम्मी पापा ने बोला था उस टाइम इंजीनियर बनने के लिए, शायद इंजीनियर ही बन लेना चाहिए था, एटलीस्ट जॉब तो कंसिस्टेंट रहती
But that
है.
question
That's
will come
another
to
thing.
you in spite of the pandemic, right? That
Yes,
question
in
will have come
spite
to
of
you
the
anyway.
pandemic, it comes
Yeah.
anyway, that oh God, डांस के अलावा भी कुछ कर ही लेना चाहिए था. Maybe it would have been a better thing. But when I think about it, I'm like, would I be able to sit in that 9 to 5 job or 9 to 9 job now and still do something that I'm passionate about? No. And
Yeah,
I see people who are 30, 35 who want to get out and rediscover themselves, like they say. And I say, okay, thankfully I've not reached that level of rediscovering myself.
Which is why the great resignation is happening now. I mean, the fact remains, that's the biggest movement, that social movement that's happening right now is actually the great resignation, which goes to
resignation.
prove that we are talking about a very different generation, far more confident than ours, maybe. You know, and it's there's hope there. You say what's motivating you? I think that's motivating me. I
That,
mean, these guys are getting out there and doing things on their own. And
absolutely.
the pandemic has actually created unprecedented amount of content as well. The funny
Oh,
thing is, it's loss of life and creation of content. Both have gone hand in hand.
yeah,
What is
yeah,
things will
That
actually
is
have
true.
boomed up, and now it's a real test for all of us to see where the ground really is.
I agree. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is there. Pandemic has opened all sorts of new spaces for us. So
The social media, I mean, come on,
how
Instagram has suddenly, Instagram Reels. How can
reels
we forget Reels
now
that came out
comes, yeah,
in during the
The
pandemic?
Panita would
And
yeah,
know best
YouTube shorts,
all of us.
yeah, I mean,
YouTube
It's
someone,
shorts.
also added pressure to create content
of course,
all the
yes,
time.
of course, but
Yeah.
That's
I think
another thing
Reels
comes
has,
in. Yeah.
smaller
But it's
brands have
great.
realized, yeah,
Yeah.
they want to advertise through Reels. I mean, people don't want a mainstream artist. Maybe they want someone who's still got the fame, got the popularity, but who's capable and who stands for something, which I feel is great. Social
Yeah.
media has, if you're consistent and are
Yeah.
driven to do it regularly, it does impact our lives in a big way these days. I mean, you're getting in touch with people from every corner of the world. It's not just in our country or in that sphere that we live in. Say, oh, I'm staying in Delhi, so I'm going to perform in Delhi. Only people in Delhi are going to see me. But now with, I don't think I ever thought about live streaming a performance before this, saying, oh, I'm doing a physical performance, I'll live stream it also. And I
Yeah.
think that's what the pandemic has done for artists. And there are its pluses and minuses. So we
Oh,
live and
yeah.
learn.
Yes,
Absolutely.
like baking, cooking, and all of these small arts, which we consider that it's everyday things, that also has come up a lot. Like people are doing new things and they are posting it, and then it's getting viral, and all of that is happening. So people have
The
been
number of,
boosted. Okay,
yeah.
baking can also be like a profession. Otherwise, they were like, yeah, like let's become an engineer. We can always bake at home. So that was there. Now that's a new thing that has happened. Absolutely. So, since I'd
Yeah, the
already,
cloud kitchen has been, sorry,
yeah,
I interrupted,
yeah,
but
Yeah.
the
yeah,
cloud kitchen has been the biggest boom in the,
Revolution. It has
yes,
been
it is. It
revolutionary.
is.
Yes. Yes.
And we are talking in a country where there's no TikTok. Imagine what would have happened if TikTok was still running
Imagine.
thriving.
Imagine.
I know, I know.
Maybe
I
we
think
would have done this show on TikTok.
actually,
Maybe I don't know.
So true. So
getting
true.
hearts and likes. So, no, actually, TikTok went, and that's why we think Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts took up that much, effort to just launch it right then, because TikTok was getting all the market. Now we have a lot of them, and people are all of them have again started. Actually, we don't
Please
find any
remember one
TikTok.
thing. But one thing we are Shreyasi and as much Dipannita who have millions of followers. But the fact remains, one thing we are all learning is also our formats of storytelling are very different in each of these.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Yes.
You know, and it's
absolutely.
something we are learning. We are not there yet.
Yeah.
We are
No,
not,
no,
yeah,
not at
but
all.
we are like,
I mean,
yes. I think it's making us also, like, I always feel social media has made us brighter. I feel in certain ways. Like, you're constantly thinking. You're always, your
not just
creative juices are always working,
Yeah.
let's do this, let's do that, let's work on this, figure
Let's
this
I
try this
heard,
out.
out.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I
yeah.
heard that somewhere
see,
someone was saying, I think, that a 3 hour film is easier to make than a 3 minute or 3 second or 30-second video clip, because you need to tell so much of a story in just that limited amount of time. So they think that it's more difficult. I think
And then
I heard
edit and
somewhere.
text and all
Yeah,
of it. Yeah. And you do it yourself sometimes. Yeah.
yes,
Maybe
yeah.
one
yes.
day we can do one
You
day
know,
we can do a master session with Dipannita
Yeah.
on this.
For
I
instance,
know camera angles. I'm as a dancer, as a stage performer, I'm learning camera angles now. Into the pandemic, that's what I said. Oh, okay. I can't go
yeah.
beyond. If I look this side, I'm off the frame completely. Okay, so
Yes,
you
and I'm
learn. I guess.
still learning it. Yes, yes, absolutely. So yeah, one master session for graphic designing with you, Vishwajyoti, and so I used to, by the way, learn Bharatanatyam when I was little. So and
Really?
We
eventually
have
I
all
took up,
learned.
yeah,
We have all
eventually I
learned
took up
Bharatanatyam here.
classical singing.
Le-
So I gave up
I would.
Bharatanatyam for singing, but I did learn Bharatanatyam. I will never be able to dance like you, but I will take master class the next time
Oh yes.
from
Oh
you.
yes. Most certainly.
And now she knows the camera
Most certainly.
angles. So she'll be
Yeah,
always on
absolutely.
screen. Okay, so since I'd already told that this was the last question of the session, I would like to thank Dipannita, Shreyasi, and Vishwajyoti for the very insightful conversation, which we also got in the comments that this is a very insightful session, and for your time this evening. I truly enjoyed this panel discussion, obviously. And with this, we end the fourth episode titled of Art and Artists, Stories from the Stage, under Stories of India, brought to you by tellmeyourstory.biz. And registrations are now open. This is a reminder for the writing program season 4, last date 20th December 2021. The next episode of the Stories of India Season 1 will have Abhijit Bhaduri, Meeta Sengupta, and Srushti Rao speaking on India in the boardroom on 12th December 2021. So, till then, stay well, stay safe, stay
Thank you for
together.
having us. Tell me your
Thank
story.
you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for having
It's a
us,
Thank you
cool,
and
all.
thank
Thank you
you,
cool
so much.
panel.
you
Yeah.
and Carol
It was
also. Yes.
wonderful talking